Good Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a great weekend. The Browns did what they were supposed to do. They went out and flat out dominated a team they were better than, shutting out the Arizona Cardinals. Let's head inside the locker room. Kevin Stefanski addressing his team after the win. Then he will also give us an injury update and talk about the win this afternoon.
I had a taste in our mouth from last week. All we could do today was go 1-0. That's all we could do. And we, from the jump, we started fast and we finished strong. Okay? And that was the preparation that you put into this week. We had to go 1-0, and we did. Now let's talk about how we did that. First of all, offensively, first time in a long time, 0 giveaways. Take care of the rock. Great job. All right, Mr. Cooper was at the office today. 5 catches, 139. And that last one, he drew up in the dirt with number 4. Great job. Great job. Hey, how about the day that Corey had? Okay. Corey went crazy. 7 punts, 58.6 yards. Field position game. Okay, you guys want to talk about the defense? All right, what's the only stat that matters? Points. Goose egg. That's a hell of a job. Okay. Now let's talk about how you did it. 58 yards, 41 on the ground, 17 in the air, 3 takeaways, 12 on third down. Okay, 7 sacks. Number 94 had 3 of them.
Marquise Goodwin is in concussion protocol. Jed Wills is going to go to IR with an MCL injury. It's not season ending, so expect him to work real hard in his rehab and get him back. On the game itself, really dominant performance there by our defense in particular. I thought offensively, proud of the guys having a clean slate, not turning the ball over, not giving the ball away, which had been, obviously we've done too often this season. So have a clean game that way. And then I thought Corey was outstanding in the field position game. So a lot that was really, really good.
And with that, let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, also brownzone.com. And Scott, they did what they should do. They dominated a team that they had more talent than.
Yeah, they did. But, that's never easy to do, Dave. You watch a lot of NFL games. There's not a lot of shutouts. There's not a lot of blowouts. Yeah, they happen every once in a while, and I guess the ingredients set up for one Sunday, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So I think the Browns deserve all the credit in the world for making that happen, and it's for all the reasons that Stefanski laid out. The defense was great. The offense took care of the ball and just made enough big plays to get to 27 points.
So after the game, Deshaun Watson talked about getting back on the field, finally feeling close to normal.
Feels good. I mean, this is what, I've been preparing and training very, very hard to get back to, is just to get out there and play free and be able to be very close to myself and just go out there and compete and have fun with my teammates. And that's what, today brought.
How do you feel coming out of it? And did you need to take a couple of those hits to feel like you were back to being healthy and good to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of football. So, I didn't want to go out there and like I said before, just play handicap or, hold myself, to a disadvantage because, of an injury that I had before. So came out healthy. I feel good. And we just got to keep going and striving each and every day.
You said very, very close to myself. Why not all the way? What's missing?
I'm not 100%. I just came from an injury. So, I just miss whatever I was, 19 for 30. So I miss a couple throws that I won't. That I know I can make, and we just got to keep striving, and I'm striving to get better each and every opportunity that I get.
And there were 2 or 3 throws still that he made that you're like, yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think from the health perspective and just the overall what you need to do to, have the offense you're looking for perspective. The issue with the arm the whole time was, can he throw it like he needs to throw it? And he said for a long time he couldn't, and that was the issue. And that's why he didn't play for so long. And then when he tried to come back against the Colts, he wasn't right. But the 59-yarder to Cooper, where he slides a little bit to the left and then throws a rope down the left sideline, I mean, that was a throw that I think for a lot of people, it's okay, he can do it. Then there was a 17-yard out to Cooper that I thought that was another strong throw. He took a hit a couple of plays later on a scramble that picked up a first down. I thought that sequence was big. And then the 49er that set up the final touchdown, he throws a perfect ball. Cooper splits the double team, and it's a great throw on a go route. So I think that proved that, okay, the arm's where it needs to be. He can make all the throws. He can run like he needs to, take some hits. Obviously, you don't want him to take a ton of hits, but he's going to. You're playing the Ravens and the Steelers. Playing anybody, you're going to take hits. He needs to scramble and run. That's part of who he is. So I think he checked a lot of boxes. Now the next step is just, more consistency. You hit more of the throws, right? Instead of 19 for 30, it's 24 for 30, whatever. More completions. But I thought that was a really positive step in a couple of big areas.
Well, and if you're going to liken it to a baseball guy, because he's coming back from a rotate, that was his AAA start. So the one thing, he didn't turn the ball over. And the other thing you saw is he thought about running, and then he would find Ford or Hunt. And there's nothing wrong with that. Continue to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was huge to me. And that got him, I think, probably a little confidence early, just to get some completions. They pick up some yards. But if you have the choice, and it can be you taking a hit or getting to the running back who can take a hit, get it to your running back, right? And it's a simple throw. It's a 5-yard dump off as you're scrambling. And I feel like those outlets have probably been there for him all year, and he just didn't choose to use them. And then he did on Sunday. And I think that is important as you're talking about long-term, trying to stay as healthy as you can, and just picking up yards, right? You get your guys involved. The defense has to honor those guys. I thought that was a big part for him, too.
Yeah, and especially when you have Ford and Pierre Strong. Those are two guys who somebody misses a tackle, and now it's a 40-yard gain instead of a 5 or 10-yard gain. So first shutout since 2007 for the Browns. It goes over 251 games. Here's some of the particulars that the Cardinals couldn't score. Defense against the Cardinals, 1.2 average yards per play, 3 turnovers, 7 sacks, and this last one, minus 25 rushing yards before contact. That kind of just hammers home how much penetration the defensive line was getting and how far they were pushing back the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, the defensive line is, one of the strengths of the defense of the team. If not the biggest strength, the secondary is also really good. But when those guys up front, all 4 of them were working together, the tackles had a really good game. Not just from the run stopping, but they made plays. Dalvin Tomlinson had 2.5 sacks. Shelby Harris had the strip sack that Myles Garrett recovered. Jordan Elliott had a sack. So a lot to go around for those guys up front. And then, none of the running backs for the Cardinals averaged a yard a carry, which is really hard to fathom. Clayton Tune, the quarterback, scrambled for 20-some yards. That was it. That's all he got on the ground. I think the farthest penetration they got was the 40 of Cleveland. So, it was never in jeopardy. The shutout was never really in jeopardy. The Browns just dominated, probably like they should have, because the Cardinals are shorthanded, started a rookie. But it was also, imposing their will. And the Cardinals have a good offensive line. They have some strength up there. Stefanski mentioned Yelder Froholt, who is here. He's the center. He's a big, strong guy. Will Henderson is a big guy at the tackle spot, and the Browns just won those matchups.
So let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hey, love the show. Great team win today. I think the Browns defense is finally starting to kind of put it together. I mean, we've been great all year, but this game, great game. Go defense, go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, they played really well yesterday. The previous 2 games against the Colts and the Seahawks, there were some things that happened. So I'm curious to see how they react to the Ravens, who they've seen already.
Yeah, me too. And, Jim Schwartz mentioned it last week, the coordinator, that there had been too much feast or famine. I think that was within games and just overall. The Browns have played really well. For example, week 3 against Tennessee, they let up, I think it was 94 yards. Week 4 against Baltimore didn't go crazy yardage-wise, but they ran for 131. They scored 28 points. and the defense had a letdown. And then, they start poorly against Seattle, play well for a while, give up that late touchdown. They played well for most of the game against San Francisco and then don't against the Colts, but get a late stop, right? So it's been, I think a bit of a roller coaster. And if you're going to have the number one defense in the world, like they say they want to, you can't have that. There's got to be more consistency. And I'm working on a story right now about that. So you come off this great performance against the Cardinals, right? Third fewest yards in franchise history. You got to back that up. Like, that's the key to consistency. Back it up against a really good opponent in the Ravens. And, I think motivation-wise, not that you should need motivation, but, everybody looks to that. They call on it. The motivation yesterday was to bounce back from the giving up that winning touchdown drive in Seattle. So this week, it's do twice in a row, bounce back from that Ravens game, the first game where they didn't play well. You're going against a Ravens defense that's really good and number one in the league in points. Well, the Browns are number one in the league in yardage. So it's two of the best defenses kind of going head to head. So there's a lot of reasons for the Browns defense to try to put its best foot forward.
The other thing is the expectations are higher because you've seen a glimpse of what they can do. So, they're being graded on a little bit of a higher scale because of what you expect from them. And along those lines, take a look at this. This is from Dan Murphy from the Browns. He tweets this out. Fewest net yards allowed in games this season. Browns have the top three. There was last week against Arizona 58. You mentioned the Tennessee game 94. And then Joe Burrow, again, he wasn't healthy. But the Bengals, they still have some really talented guys under 150 yards. They've given up under 150 net yards in 3 games this year. So you're grading them on a curve.
Well, and that's how you lead the league in yardage, right? You have 3 games like that. Those are not skew the stats, but it really slants them. But yeah, the expectations are high because of those numbers, because you know what the potential is, and because of the talent, right? We talk about talent all the time, and we saw it in this defense, and now we've seen it show up, right? So why can't it happen every week? There's really not a great reason that you can't be good week in and week out. They have the front. Myles Garrett might be the best defensive player in the league. Denzel Ward might be the best corner in the league. I don't know if he is, but Juan Thornhill said he was. He's certainly playing at a really high level, had another interception yesterday. So if you got the front and the back, you got guys running around in the middle at the linebacker position, you got a chance to be really good week in and week out.
Absolutely. And having said that, there are going to be times where you give up big plays. That's because the other team has NFL guys that are really good too.
Yeah, but you just can't let it happen repeatedly, right? Multiple times a game. And you can't let it happen at the key moments. I think that's what's probably been most frustrating for Jim Schwartz. They let up the drive late against San Fran, but get the break when the kid misses a field goal. They give up the touchdown against Seattle, right? Those are big moments that the defense didn't show up for. And I think that's what he points to is, okay, that's when the best teams kind of rise to the occasion. And also the red zone. The Browns have been bad defensively in the red zone. So those are the key moments. And that's where I think is the biggest place where they can make even a greater jump.
Yeah, that's where championship defense show up, is in those moments, without question. Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Love watching, love listening, love calling in. Do you see any scenario where the Browns upgrade Grant Delpit before the season's over, or is he a top priority for the offseason? Because this guy, in my opinion, he's one of the best safeties in the league right now. I'm not saying in history or that. I'm saying right now he's one of the best safeties in football. And then it's like our defense finally put it together. I mean, they've been great all year, but it was like, man, they were humming on all cylinders yesterday. Just like to hear your thoughts. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Scott, it would be interesting to see if he'd be willing to talk about that now. Because if he continues to play like that, the price might go up for him.
Yeah, it's an interesting test case because, he's a second-round pick, so they liked him. It feels like a guy, when you take him that high, is somebody you want to keep around. But heading into this year, he hadn't played well enough where the Browns, I don't think, were committed or even leaning toward re-signing him to an extension. That's changed this year. He's played as well as he ever has. So, I think he's a guy that they want to keep. He's your own guy. Andrew Berry drafted him. But, money matters, and they have a lot invested in Juan Thornhill. Do they pay both safeties? I don't know if they value that position that much. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Does he make it to the market? Does he command huge dollars? Would they think about putting a franchise tag on him, which they haven't used? I don't think they used it since Phil Dawson a decade ago. So he's going to be interesting. Now, as far as I know, he likes it here. He's really excelling in Jim Schwartz's defense, so maybe you get something done. But, you don't see a ton of extensions done during the season. I know a couple happened last week. So that's something. I think that is something to keep an eye on.
Kevin Stefanski talked about the attacking style of defense for the Browns today.
That's the word we use, disruptive. That's what we're trying to do. It's really kind of how our defense is built. And obviously everything, as you know, starts up front. So with our line, with the ends and the tackles, getting off the ball, being aggressive in how we play, I think that, filters its way through our entire defense.
Jordan Elliott seemed to have that kind of that initial spark, and then Dalvin went off for his multiple sacks. But how have you seen that grow this season? I've asked you about him before, but now with the production there, how have you seen him grow in that regard?
Yeah, continues to play disruptive football for us. You saw him get in there in the run game, knocking people back, getting, finding his way to the quarterback, just any which way he can, pressuring the quarterback. So he's been, he's playing good football for us.
Scott, I know you wrote an article about Jordan Elliott. Take us through that and kind of, what you found.
Yeah, I'd been meaning to talk to him because I think he's been playing well. He's had some splash plays, especially Colts game. He had a big game. And he's one of those guys who's not in the locker room a ton when the media is in there. So I saw him last week, and I went up to him, and I just started talking to him. And we had a nice sit-down before the 2022 season. He kind of opened up, said he hadn't really been training hard previously in the offseason. Just wasn't. He was kind of slacking off. But he'd rededicated himself. He'd gotten married. He stayed in Cleveland in the offseason and worked hard, was in the facility a lot. So he expected big things from himself in 2022, and it didn't really happen. He started every game. First time he was a full-time starter. But, he was part of that really bad run defense. He's in the middle. And he got a lot of criticism. Pro Football Focus ranked him like 193rd among defensive tackles. He kept hearing he was the worst guy in the league. And he said he heard all that criticism. He said he was being crucified, and he questioned if he belonged in the league. He really questioned whether or not he was cut out to play in the NFL, didn't know if he'd have a career. And then Jim Schwartz comes, they tweaked the scheme. It's more attacking. He's got a new D-line coach in Ben Bloom who really believes in him. He starts the year strong, and that builds his confidence. And now, he had another good game yesterday. He had a sack. So it's just interesting to hear a guy kind of, open himself up and talk about the doubts that he had and the fact that he was overcome them.
Well, and the other thing is Jim. That's one of the guys Jim Schwartz seems to kind of unlocked in this scheme without question. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, from his Unbuttoned podcast, an analytical look to how good the Browns defense has been.
The Browns defense allowed 59 net yards on 48 plays in Week 9.
Is that amazing?
Recording the highest defensive success rate, that is 87.5%, in a game in the next-gen stats era.
Yeah, it was an ass whooping on that side of the ball. There's no other way to say it.
So now they have the #1 success rate. And so I don't know exactly what goes into determining success rate. Is that just like you won the play, basically?
I'm guessing so.
It's like
right?
I give that to the
yeah.
It's
the
like
defense
3
won that
yards. You're
play.
like, I give that to the defense.
Yeah.
I think they won
that's
that.
exactly what it is.
So,
right.
Yeah, 4 yards on first down. Pete is explaining to in my ear. There's a lot of numbers involved here, but I trust the people at AWS that they got this handled. So Cleveland right now, according to their metrics, success rate, they're #1 in the NFL, 69%. Baltimore Ravens, you just declared the Baltimore Ravens the #1 defense in the NFL.
But not in success rate.
Not in success rate, according to AWS. They're #2 at 63%.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's special on that side of the ball.
So what that showed you actually, and they didn't really talk about it, Scott, that's since 2016, since next-gen stats have been kept. The Browns have the #1 defense in success rate, and it's measured against 4 yards on first down, 30% of what's needed on second down. Do you convert on third or fourth down? That's basically how they measure success rate. #2 historically since 2016 is the Ravens. So that's the battle that you're going to see Sunday.
Yeah, I was just doing some research for this story. I'm looking up where the Browns rank and where the Ravens rank, and they're like 1, 2, 1, 3, and a whole bunch of categories. In really like similar categories on defense and on offense. Running the ball, they're similar offensively, but then defense, versus the run, points, total yardage. It just speaks to how much of a jump the Browns have made, right? Because the Ravens are always good on defense, and the Browns haven't been great on defense, especially last year, right? That's why they underachieved last year was because of the defense. So, that's a credit to Jim Schwartz. And it's a credit to the offseason moves, roster additions that Andrew Berry made, that the defense has been able to take this leap. And, they're efficient, which shows up in that success rate. They're also explosive. And we talked about the explosive plays they can't afford to give up. But they create so many negative plays that it puts offenses in really difficult spots. And if you talk about how they can compete with Baltimore, okay, if you force a -1 yard on a run, -1 run on first down, all right, 2nd and 11, that puts Lamar Jackson in a tough spot. If you get another negative spot, it's 3rd and long, right? That's how you win, and that's how you control field position. You control time of possession, is you get those 3 and outs, and they've had a ton of 3 and outs, and it's by having that one play a series that puts the offense in a spot where it can't recover from.
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time, or no, we're going to take 2 more timeouts, but we're going to take a quick one here. Then we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also get Brian Baldinger breaking down Wyatt Teller and DeJuan Jones from yesterday. Sports for CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Great show. Howard from Marin County. Great defense against a crummy team. Shutout was absolutely wonderful. I am concerned about the offensive line play and how will Bill Callahan protect Deshaun Watson and give him some time to throw. I think Elijah Moore is not really a factor, and I'm wondering if it would be good to throw to Spencer Tillman again. I'm somewhat worried about the Ravens and the Steelers, as I can't conceive of the Browns beating them because the Browns' offense is just not that good. The defense is okay, but not the offense. Thanks a lot, Dave. Take care. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, the offensive line, yeah, I get it. You're down your 2 starting tackles. If you have a week to scheme and prepare, it's a little different than having to patchwork it in game. It's the only thing I would say about Bill Callahan and what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the line played fine with Hudson in yesterday. I don't think that's, I think Watson was sacked 1 time. But it's a concern against big-time pass rushes like Baltimore and Pittsburgh have. And even when you have your starting tackles, those teams are concerned. and now you're on your backups. Now, we can talk about whether or not DeJuan Jones qualifies as a backup anymore because he's played, now it's 7 starts, played at a pretty high level. James Hudson's been around the league, but he's never been a full-time starter. So they're going to have to scheme and game plan and call plays to help one or both of those tackles. My guess is they'll try to help Hudson and leave Jones, kind of on an island because he's so big and he's held up. Like, pass protection is what he's done so well to this point. But that makes it harder, right? It makes it harder to scheme, makes it harder to call plays, makes it harder on a quarterback if you got a tight end or a running back in to chip or in to double team, because that's one less guy getting out, to catch a pass. So, a lot of teams have to deal with that. A lot of teams do that against Myles Garrett because he's just so good. But they will have to make some adjustments and then hope that Hudson and Jones play as well as they can. But it's certainly not easy, and that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, until Jed Wills gets back.
So, Brian Baldinger, former offensive lineman, some analysis with Wyatt Teller and DeJuan Jones from yesterday.
We talk about, in the NFL, a brotherhood. It's a brotherhood. You watch Wyatt Teller and DeJuan Jones go about their business right here. And, Jerome Ford gets a good run. And they open up the hole up front for it. Nobody has to know except them. That's the brotherhood right there. That's what it is right there. That's all they need. Just a little bit of, love. And then you do this. Then you just, next play, you just do this. You just get flat out nasty. You just start turning and flipping and pinning like it's Monday Night Raw. Does it get any better? Is that Browns football or what? They're just burying Cardinals right into the turf in downtown Cleveland. That is a beautiful photo. That you can get excited about.
Can you tell he's a former offensive lineman by the way he describes those?
Yeah, you can. I'll tell you what, I love his energy. I talked to him, trying to think when it was. It might have been week 2 before Jones' first start at right tackle about DeJuan Jones, because Baldinger's been on him since the preseason and loves him and breaks down his film. So we talked about the potential he has and just the footwork and the, obviously the size that he has. Where he needs to get better is in the run game. And those are a couple examples of where he used the size and strength that he has to his advantage, because you haven't always seen that. Coaches and teammates talk about, okay, that's the next step he has to take because he's been really good in pass protection. So to see those two examples, and I think he can learn a lot from Teller, right? Teller's strength is run blocking. So to have him next to you, and hopefully that kind of rubs off, and Jones can take the next step in that part of his game.
All right, so yesterday was the 8th game of the season. Take a look at this. It is the first game of the season that the Browns did not have a turnover on offense. And it's the second time all year that they won the turnover battle. The Colts game was the only other game where they didn't lose the turnover battle. Again, having said that, 5-3, which
miracle.
Yeah, it is. It's also, it's got to be a point of emphasis. Take care of the football, and this defense will keep you in pretty much every game.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I know it has been a point of emphasis. And Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, said last week, he goes, we've been on teams that we talk about it all the time and we turn it over all the time. Then we're on teams that don't talk about it at all and we don't turn it over. So, he's trying to search for a rhyme or a reason, and sometimes there's not. Obviously, they make a point of it. It's up to the players to take that to the field, right, to protect the ball. Not to pick on David Njoku, but I think of him fumbling against the Steelers. It was kind of a needless fumble. Then you get all the interceptions the quarterbacks have thrown, right? You throw that into the mix. And part of that skewed, DTR threw 3 picks, in his start. P.J. Walker had, I think, 6 turnovers in his 3 games. So, a lot of that's coming from your backup quarterbacks, but still, you need to protect it. They still won games, which is what I talk about it being a miracle. You turn it over 3 times a game, still figuring out a way to win is really hard to do. It's a credit to the defense and Stefanski and everything. But you're right. The formula is, even with Deshaun Watson back, right, your $230 million quarterback, the formula is don't turn it over, make a couple of big plays, and trust your defense. And that's going to get you to the fourth quarter with the chance to win I think like 99 times out of 100. And if your defense gets a bunch of turnovers, then you go into the fourth quarter ahead trying to protect the lead.
Yeah, and if Deshaun Watson makes 2 or 3 of those throws like he made against the Cardinals, that's what elite quarterbacks do. They make throws in big-time situations. Here's the top-ranked Browns against the Cardinals from PFF. And again, it's an independent evaluation, so we'll leave it at that. Wyatt Teller, highest graded, 78.8. Take a look at Deshaun Watson, 78.5. That is his highest graded game as a Brown. Same grade as Amari Cooper. Joel Bitonio at 75.4, and David Njoku, 66.8. So again, people have been kind of all over the place with Watson. Can he get better? Sure. Will he get better? Probably. But he played pretty well.
He did. Those grades surprised me a little bit. I mean, I thought he clearly played better against the Titans than he did yesterday. I thought Cooper. I don't know what Cooper could have done better. Like Cooper was 5 for 5 for 139 and a touchdown, and that's the same grade as a quarterback that's under 67%. Like I don't know how that matches up, but I did think Watson played pretty well. I do think it's reasonable to expect him to continue to play better. The matchups get harder, but he should get more comfortable. If you throw out that Colts game, right, the 12 snaps and 5 throws, that's back-to-back good games. The last full game against Tennessee, and then this full game against Arizona. I think if you're optimistic, you can look at those games and say, okay, he's ready to take off. He's ready to get past the struggles at the end of last season and into the beginning of this season.
So I know this is from your mailbag. Do you think they should target David Njoku more?
Yeah, I kind of do. And we've seen a little bit of an uptick, right? I thought he had a big game against the Seahawks. They ran a few screens to him that were productive. That touchdown, I don't know if it counts as a screen, but they faked the screen left and right and threw it to him over the middle. And he ran for, I think it was 18 yards. He had the 41-yard screen. I don't think the way the Cardinals were playing defense yesterday set up the screen game. I don't think they were susceptible because they were playing a lot of cover 2 and they weren't really attacking like the Seahawks did. But just overall, you talk about the lack of production behind Cooper out of the receiving corps. Well, then there's nothing wrong with turning to David Njoku to try to generate that offense. Now, I know you're asking him to block. Sometimes you ask him to stay in, to pass protect. So maybe he doesn't have a million chances, but I would like to see him get the ball more. And I think in the red zone too, when we've seen it the last 2 weeks, he scored inside the red zone. I think that's something to build off.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Dial in a little bit more on that Ravens game coming up Sunday. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for taking my call. I told you the Browns got the best defense in the NFL. They are confident when the offense can move the ball. And the big test, though, is going to be with Baltimore Ravens. And that's where we'll see where we are. I think that the Browns can beat them. We owe them. They came to our house to beat us. We got to go back there and do the same. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I think there's something to the fact that the defense is probably looking forward to going and playing the Ravens again. They didn't play well against them the first time.
I completely agree. And I asked, I think, Juan Thornhill and Sione Takitaki about that today. Not only bouncing back from that Week 4 game, but also going head-to-head with that Ravens defense. And I think both of those are reasons to be motivated. I think reasons for the defense to really show up. And, we talk about, that caller just said they're the best defense in the league. I think we're going to, and I hate to say anything definitively in Week 10, right? But I think we're going to be able to say after Sunday who the best defense in the league is. If the Browns come out and control Lamar Jackson, control that running game that ran for like 298 yesterday, and get a win in Baltimore, then I think you can say, yes, this is the best defense in the league. If they give up some yardage, they give some points, Baltimore dominates the Browns, then I would give it to Baltimore because they have, right now, they're ranked number one in the most important category, and that's points. So it's really like a head-to-head showdown, and there's a bunch of plot storylines in this game, but to me, that's right at the top of the list.
Yeah, and if the Ravens are able to beat the Browns, that opens up a real comfortable lead for them pretty much on the rest of the division. The Browns need to get that one just to bring the Ravens back to the pack. This is from ESPN. Questions for each team after Week 9. Browns, with Deshaun Watson back, can Cleveland make a run? Watson's return comes in time for a crucial two-game stretch. AFC North foes Baltimore and Pittsburgh. If the Browns can somehow sweep both, they could take command of the division. I don't know about take command of the division, but if they're able to sweep both of them, they're certain. AFC North is every bit as brutal as we thought it would be.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, they wouldn't take control, but if they win, all of a sudden they're right back in the mix, right? They would have the same number of losses as Baltimore. So that's why these next two games are huge, especially the one Sunday in Baltimore. But the return of Deshaun Watson and him playing at a relatively high level yesterday, I think it does give that hope that, yes, this team can get on a run. Because they won 2 games with P.J. Walker at quarterback. It never felt sustainable, even though they should have won 3, right? They should have won that Seattle game, late interception, the final drive that the Seahawks had. It just felt like it was going to crumble, right? That the foundation wasn't solid. Well, you get back your franchise quarterback. He plays pretty well. He has a turnover-free game. That's 2 in a row. I mean, I keep saying it, if you take out that Colts game, he didn't have an interception against the Titans either. All of a sudden you can say, hey, this is the recipe to win games. You got a really good defense, you got a really good special teams, and your offense has started to run the ball better. You get your quarterback back, your number one receiver's playing at a high level. Like, that's all you need to go win games against pretty much anybody in the league. So I think that's why there is hope and why I think the Browns have a chance to go into Baltimore and get a win.
Yeah, and the other thing he gives you is he gives you the ability to deliver a quick strike, and you saw it with the 2 Cooper throws. And there's other people to unlock in that avenue, but that's one thing that Watson gives you. I mean, literally more. Goodwin, I know, is in concussion protocol. I mean, he has the ability to throw 50, 60 yards every play.
Yeah, and I think that kind of feels like what they're going to need to do, right? Control the clock. I don't think you want Watson throwing 45 times a game. It doesn't feel like they're going to spread it out and go 3 wides and throw it around the field. It feels more like bulk, especially against the Ravens, where it just feels like it's going to be a grinded out, low-scoring game. I think you want to run the ball a bunch, try to control, win the field position battle, but then take those shots. And, like you said, one of those 50-yard completions changes everything. It flips the field. It gives you a chance to score, as opposed to saying, okay, we're playing one of the best defenses in the league. We're going to have to go on a 12-play drive. Like, that's really difficult to do. But if you get one huge play and then score, that's how the momentum and just how the game can flip. And Watson does give you that chance, as well as Amari Cooper. And I think you're right, Elijah Moore and even David Njoku.
Yeah, and again, if you think about it, What does Josh Allen give the Bills? What does Patrick Mahomes give the Chiefs? What does Tua give the Dolphins? You have the ability to hit quick strikes, and that's what you need from an offense. Ravens are playing really well. What do the Browns need to do defensively?
Yeah, I mean, you can't let Lamar take over. And I thought he did for a stretch in week 4, right? Like, I don't think his numbers were crazy, but it felt like there was a period in the game where he made the 10 plays, or it's probably more like 6 or 7 plays, that he needed to make. And that's how it is when you face Lamar. Whether that comes in the second quarter like it did in week 4, or whether it comes on the last drive like it did on that one, was a Monday night game where he comes running out of the locker room. Right? Like, he can just take over a game. So you have to try to limit that. I think number 2 is slow down that run game. And they had success in week 4. I just said they ran for almost 300 yards against Seattle, and Seattle's a good run defense. They ran for almost 300 on Sunday. So limit Lamar, stop the run game, and then I know Lamar's throwing it great this year, and he's leading the league in completion percentage at over 70%, but get Lamar in 3rd and long and make him try to throw to Beckham and Flowers and Bateman and Andrews, because you trust your corners, you trust your pass rush, and that gives you a chance to win.
Scott Petrak, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also check out his stuff online, brownzone.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnaman straight ahead. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Jim from Rochester. We don't win games because of Mr. Stefanski. We win them in spite of him. I just don't understand this guy's high school playbook. And if he thinks it's going to work against Baltimore this week, he can forget about it. If we win this game Sunday, it's because of Coach Schwartz. There's a real football coach. He's rough and tough. Let's see what happens in these next 2 games. I'll give him kudos if we win. But again, if we win, it's in spite of Coach Stefanski, not because of him. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye now.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnaman, Dog Pound Daily, Network 216. Jim, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree. I don't get it with some of the, and it's not just Jim. There's a lot of people that are anti-Kevin Stefanski. I mean, you haven't had your big-time running back, your all-pro running back, possible Hall of Famer. You're now going to be 2 tackles down. You haven't had your starting quarterback. at some point in time, this next man up thing is like, what do you do? And they're 5-3.
Dave, I don't know. He can't win. At this point, Kevin Stefanski could walk on water, and his detractors would just say it's because he can't swim. Like there's no winning. Like you pointed it out. There's your all-pro running back, your right tackle. Without your quarterback for 4 games, you're 5-3. Like and this guy who hasn't even seen this week's games already telling you in advance it's not because of Stefanski if they win. He's like, he hadn't even seen the game yet. His mind's already made up. So there's a large segment of people who's already decided Kevin Stefanski's their scapegoat no matter what. What can you say? What can you do about it? Like for him, I think the one thing to take notice of is I don't think he's viewed internally by the organization as he is by this contingent of fan base. I think there's a big disconnect there.
So as a young reporter, I worked for the legendary voice of the Browns, Gibb Shanley. And there was a story I did, and it got some feedback. And David, best advice I have ever gotten. David, let me tell you something. If you give 100 people free vanilla ice cream, 50 of them are going to bitch it's not chocolate. And he's absolutely right.
You're seeing it. Yes, sir. That's proof of concept right there.
Right. All right, this is from BrownsWire.com. The good, bad, and ugly from Week 9. The good, Deshaun Watson's deep ball accuracy. The bad, run game still lacks game-to-game consistency. And the ugly, attrition is taking its toll on the Browns. Now, I got to say the bad and the ugly might be linked together potentially.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I will say this, like the run game was not efficient, but they stuck with it, and that forced Arizona to play it honest, and I think that's key. If you become one-dimensional, you're not going to do your quarterback any favors. So sticking with the run game, even though it wasn't efficient, it was the right thing to do. But this attrition is taking its toll. Frankly, I don't know what the answer is going to be to turn to for left tackle. I know Hudson's probably going to get those reps, but these next 2 games are wildly important, and he's going to be a major factor. And they just have to have a plan B in case Hudson doesn't work out. And, they won't even know for a week or 2 how long Jed's going to be out. He's on the IR. They're saying it's a 4 to 6 week. It could be 6 to 8, depending on how severe it is, And, I think even maybe kicking Joel Bitonio out to left tackle has got to be on the table because you're still in the hunt. And that's something you can't fold. They have to come up with answers. And however you can get your best 5 on the field, they have to find a way to do it.
So this is from Mac. He tweets this out. Last 2 full games, Watson has completed 70% of his passes and a 4-0 TD to interception ratio. And again, if Deshaun Watson takes care of the football, makes 1 or 2 big passes, he's doing everything you need him to do to win football games with this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those stats for those last 2 games, that's adequate. That's exactly what he needs to be doing. And the combined score of those 2 games is 54-3. Like it's a decent sample size. If you just play turnover-free football, complete over 65% of your passes, teams are going to have a tough time competing with the Cleveland Browns based on how the team is constructed. And there's nothing wrong with leaning on the defense. And yesterday, the defense did exactly what they needed to do. They kept getting the offense back the ball so the offense could get those reps. And you've seen over time that they built more confidence. His game started to come together, and by the end of it, they're hitting those explosive plays. And that's exactly what this offense has been missing, are those explosives. And yesterday, you saw 2 very beautiful passes from Deshaun Watson that leads you to believe that there's bigger things on the horizon.
Yeah, what'd you make of some takeaways from his play?
Well, obviously, for everyone, it's going to start with the shoulder. Can he drive the ball? Did it change his biomechanics at all? Is it compensating from somewhere else to generate power? But it didn't. It looked very natural. So I think that's the first thing you take away. But it also depends, what was your expectation going into that? For me, it was just show me a pulse. Show me that this thing, because we were coming off that Tennessee game thinking we finally took that step. Then all of a sudden there's this long pause. We're back. I think after the first quarter of yesterday's game, you kind of picked up where we left off at Tennessee, and you saw the continuation of it. And it's the small things. It's his ability to evade in the pocket and maintain control and evade blitzers. He only had 1 bad rep as far as pressure, in my opinion. But then what he did yesterday that I loved is that when he went through his progression, didn't find it, he dumped the ball off. And he didn't just dump the ball off. He actually approached the line of scrimmage and paused the linebacker, caused him to hold, and then dumped it off, creating yards after the catch for his running back. And it's also an awareness of understanding he could have probably ran for a few of those first downs. He's more important than that. If he can let someone else do the legwork for him, do that. But there's one thing that they did yesterday that got me way excited. So after the catch of Elijah Moore that ended up going to review, well, they didn't know it was going to go to review, so they had to get up and spike the ball. That operation was concise. I mean, they got right up and deaded the ball, but it didn't matter because it went to review. But just having that in their repertoire now, that they can go up and just take control of the clock, that's something that's going to come in handy later. That's something that's going to pay off down the line. And it's something you know, if the guy's been off for a month, to still have the wherewithal to keep the offense together like that, I think it just bodes well for how this thing is evolving.
Yeah, and again, he was efficient enough. It looked like early in the game he was a little off balance, some of his footwork or mechanics, whatever you want to say. And then as the game went on, you know, he took a couple of hits, and it was like, okay, now he's just out there playing. He's not thinking about it.
Yeah, it was puzzling too because of those 5-yard stick routes. That's stuff that he has to hit. Those are long handoffs, and he was missing on those. But the other stuff started to come together. You know, there's a 17-yard throw to Amari towards the left sideline that's just on a line, perfect footwork, just how you draw it up. You know, you started to see that, especially to Cooper in general. But like that, as that builds, you know, like usually it goes the opposite. Usually you start low, go to intermediate, then you do the big stuff. It seemed like it went the opposite way, and it was deep to intermediate. Now he needs to get down and kill the close stuff. But I think that's all stuff that's easily correctable and stuff that they'll emphasize this week.
So take a look at this. This is Watson targeting Amari Cooper and David Njoku. 9 of 11, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, that's that's going to be your 1-2 combination, it looks like.
Yeah, you can work with that. We obviously know what Cooper is to this passing game, but there's been an added emphasis to get Njoku involved, and I think it's long overdue what he does because of his ability to be a dual player, to be just as efficient as a blocker as he is a receiver. Defenses have to honor that. So a lot of times he gets matched up with a linebacker just because of how they have to deal with him. And he provides easy answers, and he's someone who can get yards after the catch. So just an added emphasis to get him the ball is going to pay off. And you saw how it worked in the red zone. Like that was simple. Why make things harder than they need to be? You know, it's just find the easy answers. And that's what I expect Stefanski to do for Watson, especially over this next month. Just continue to supply easy answers until the game starts coming back. And I think the more intricate stuff will come down the line.
Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily, Network 216, and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Myles Garrett, talk a little defense. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily, Network 216. Myles Garrett talked about the Browns' defensive performance yesterday against the Cardinals.
I mean, it feels great. Haven't had a shutout in a while, just like you said, and it was a perfect opportunity, bounce back game. We haven't been playing up to the standard that we've set on defense, and we took the challenge that Schwartz set for us, and we played with our hair on fire, and guys really responded, and happy they did to the level in which they did.
How much were you thinking about the shutout, and when did you start thinking about it?
I always think about the shutout. You go into a game thinking, no, they don't have to score. So, I mean, we lived up to that. They don't have to gain an inch. So, if they get it, let's get a TFL to take those off the board. And we made a lot of negative plays, a lot of game-changing plays, all across the board, from the front end to the back end, and couldn't be prouder.
And Casey, you mentioned the challenge Jim Schwartz put in front of him with the Cardinals. You can be sure he's going to be challenging them and reminding them what happened first time they played the Ravens coming up Sunday.
Yeah, and they have tape to point to kind of bring that home to them. And for yesterday's game, like, it was a masterful performance. And there's going to be people saying, well, that's just a 1-7 Cardinals team with a rookie quarterback. And all that's true. But that's exactly what you're supposed to do to that team if you believe you are the defense that you are. And this is 8 games now. And 3 games now, there's been a team that has not scored a touchdown against the Browns. Like, I can't remember that in 30 years. I don't remember 3 different games where teams could not score a single touchdown against this Browns defense. So it's encouraging to see, and they're believing in each other, and they're starting to play up for the task, and Schwartz is letting them know this is what's expected of you, and they got to live up to those expectations now.
So turnovers are starting to come. Kind of thought they would be. Take a look at this graph. It shows how often defenses are forcing turnover-worthy plays from opposing quarterbacks weeks 1 through 9, so up to date. Browns have forced 16 turnover-worthy plays. They're forcing turnover-worthy plays 7% of the time. So they are forcing turnover-worthy plays the most in the NFL. It hasn't translated to the most turnovers, but you would think if you continue to force turnover-worthy plays, you're going to get lots of turnovers.
We've talked about it week over week about how close they were, and that graph just illustrates it. Sometimes it's just the balance of the ball. You force a fumble, but it happens to go right back to the offense. Well, now you're starting to see, be a little more of a 50-50 proposition when they're forcing these turnovers, them actually getting their hands on the ball. And I think it's just a matter of time before they start taking more back to the house, because they're still creating the same amount of opportunities, except now the ball's bouncing their way more often.
And that is the mindset, with this defense, that it's not only take it, it's take it and take it back the other way. All right, so they go to Baltimore to play the Ravens. This will be the first time that we get to see Jim Schwartz against a team, Jim Schwartz's defense, against a team for the second time in a season. What do you expect? I mean, I'm curious to see exactly what they do.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. I've always equated playing Baltimore to kind of playing Navy. They're that one offense that's different than everyone else, and it all centers around Lamar Jackson and his unique ability and his skill set. Well, this is Jim Schwartz's second time getting to see this inside of the division, and it was just a little over a month ago they met last. And the Browns, overall, you gave up more points than you expected, but a couple of those were short fields. They did get drove on twice, which really doesn't happen. So they have stuff to tighten up, but they have to come up with answers, because Baltimore had answers for them the first time. They were able to use the aggressiveness of the defensive ends against the Browns and find running lanes behind them. And then they were able to find answers in the passing game for Lamar by running crossers and bringing people underneath to get a free 7-yard pass. And it was like clockwork. Well, now you got to come up and you have to pivot. You have to come up with answers for those answers. And it's going to be an interesting chess match. And I do think Jim Schwartz is up to it. It'll be fun to see what kind of answers he comes up with.
How concerned are you about the Ravens running attack? They put up almost 300 against the Seahawks. Now they have a rookie, I think he's rookie undrafted free agent, Keaton Mitchell, speed guy, who he put up 109 on 9 carries, something along those lines.
The answer is severely. I'm severely worried about that running game, because everything runs off that. If you can limit their early down running, you can put them in more predictable situations. But because they're so effective at running the football, and it's for the quarterback, and it's whoever the running back is, it just happens to be Keaton Mitchell right now. But I watched a lot of his tape coming out of Eastern Carolina, and that kid is a speed merchant. If he gets in the open field, forget about it. That kid's a jitterbug. And he was one of those guys that just slipped through the cracks. And of course he goes to Baltimore, and now you're seeing him get his opportunity. So they're going to have to sell out to stop this run. And you saw what happened yesterday as far as the snap counts. JOK actually played less. So it leads me to believe that there was an emphasis to let JOK take a step back, because he might have been over pursuing some of these runs and kind of using him in a more manageable pass situation, as opposed to all the running down. So we'll see if that stays up. We'll see if the snap count stay consistent with what we saw yesterday. But they're going to have to come up with something, because Baltimore's going to be coming downhill. And they're a team that if you let come downhill, man, it's a long day. Yeah, and you would assume they've got somebody who will be, quote-unquote, spying Lamar Jackson, and that's usually JOK. Yeah, you have to, or Delpit. You have to figure out your approach. Because, like I said, if you let Baltimore come downhill at you, man, it's hard to stop that. They're a team that thrives off momentum, and they just have that unicorn. You have to keep them out of third and manageable. 3rd and 4 or less seems like it's a layup for them, because at any time Lamar could just decide, I'm going to get this. And that's just disheartening for a defense to know that you cannot get them off the field on 3rd downs. So that has to be the emphasis, man. You got to stop that run, sell out at all costs, and force them to throw the ball from longer distances. You need 3rd and 8 or better to feel like you have a good chance of getting them off the field on 3rd downs.
Casey Kinnaman, Dog Pound Daily, Network 216, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnaman, make sure you check him out. Dog Pound Daily, Network 216, really good and insightful Browns coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.